Hello everybody, welcome back to Dungeon Maker here on the World of Madness server where, been doing some tagging, just adding a nice little bit of colour to the area. Well, my silly little experiments in After Effects and whatnot aside, not a lot has happened around here because, well, I did add this, obsidian section here and fill in everything, but nonetheless, and not a lot has happened around here because I have been hard at work in single-player creative, trying to make sure that I know what the cradle, which is the main body of the harvester, actually ends up looking like. And currently, I have a rough idea, but it's going to be in a single-player. So that does, however, have the slim jumping hole slim. So that does have the advantage that I can backdate it to 1.10 and then I can regain the use of replay mod so that we can actually do a time lapse. But I would have to consider how to use more recent blocks, which is, I think, basically just... No, I'm actually not sure if there's any blocks that we've added since the course of updating, but, just in case. There might be a few blocks that end up in the final design that don't end up in the time-lapsed design because it's in an older version. But, anyways, I digress. So that is our main job for today. So, without further ado, let's hop over into that test world and start building stuff, shall we? Ooh, the slowness as things load in. Jeez, I have built some colossal things here. So, let me see. Yeah, way over there is it's just basically a backup version, a model of the harvester as it currently, for the most part, exists. Obviously, it's not fully green, lime green stained clay down here, but that is there to ensure that I know exactly where everything is, so that I know, what hasn't been colorized and whatnot just yet, but otherwise, barring the emptiness, this is just an empty shell of the harvester as it currently sits. And what we're working on, of course, is the exterior, which brings me to this shape over here, which I'm not sold on just yet, but we're going to be doing a lot of changes to it. Obviously, it's made of cyan stained clay, which we're not going to be having as the main body of anything here. Probably it's going to stay stone for the most part, just for consistency between the parts. And it's got sort of, I'm going to call them hookups if you want, just to explain. These are the different parts where the legs connect, because of course we have 8 of them. So consequently I need to know where on the body those are going to connect. And then I have to embellish and redesign and decorate this exterior, which is currently completely filled, so it'll be emptied out once I've actually finished the time-lapse so that I know how much space I have where. But the idea, the continuing concept here is that this is going to be based on the harvesters that we see in sort of the opening sections of finding out about the Matrix in the course of Matrix 1. Pity they didn't make any sequels because it was such a lovely concept. But I do like, if we look at this, it very, very, very slightly comes underneath the clouds. So on a very cloudy day, you actually would have trouble seeing any of this except for the legs descending from the atmosphere. And down here we have just a little quick few blocks here that indicate where ground level is. So we have an idea of just how high up and away this thing will be once we're actually done with it. But I'm waffling, as I tend to do, so let's get to the time-lapsing, shall we? Get you in the mo. welcome back everybody. So I hope you all enjoyed that little time lapse. Not quite as long or as fancy as other ones I've done, but we work with what we've got. So, here I am in... I guess I'm literally in the shadow of the Colossus at this stage. But if we look up, we'll see the face of our imminent doom. So, we've got the ports for all 8 legs. I obviously haven't added in the legs just yet because they would be in very, very distinct relative positions and all sorts. It's easier to build those once I've just got this sort of thing added. I broke up the shape. That's sort of one of the initial things I did. I broke up the shape that we had originally, which was... how do I put this? It was phallic. So I broke it up into sections to sort of... One thing that's very evident when you're looking at a lot of the designs of the machines inside the Matrix is that they were all drawn in a sort of insectoid or basically more than 4-limb kind of creatures, because a few of them are based on octopi and squids, and others are based on insects, and I think a couple are based on dinosaurs. But yeah, I've segmented it into these 3 sections. So we've got the joining section here, which attaches to the grinder. And then we've got this section here, which is sort of our main sort of torso element, thorax, if you will. And here we have what we might generously describe as being the head. And it looks pretty good. I think there needs to be a lot more gribbling, which if you don't know what that means, it basically just means meaningless detail to the point where it looks really complicated and advanced and that kind of thing, which is a weird sort of thing these days when we're trying to make things so small and simple that makes no sense to us to have something big and complicated like that. I left this little slight overhang here, and I've tried to delineate these 3 sections based on the main material of the walls, but I'll probably blur it a bit more in the actual implementation on the server. But I left this overhang here because it gave this nice kind of sensation that this head has a slight above protecting. It's like it's slightly pulled back into the torso, and it's got sort of meaninglessly placed eyes, because if you're up here, you're not looking down at the ground. You probably don't care at all. And also, at this altitude, most of the time you've got clouds in the way to see stuff, so it's not really worth it. But just in case you do want to have a view of the ground, there are these 2 sort of... I initially thought of them as gun emplacements of some kind. Like, this was some kind of walking fortress, and it was built to maybe take on whatever came across. So if there was a wyvern or a dragon, it had the capacity to actually open fire. But now that everybody on the server actually has elytra, which is one of the meaningful reasons that the Harvester has become a point of interest, having 2 sides, having like 2 exits on either side that you can just jump out of or fly out of at your leisure seems pretty useful to me. Of course, the main interest is the interior, because I'm sure people want to know what that is like. So we've got the portal, which we're obviously going to have to move quite considerably, but that'll be fine, I think. And then we've got what I'm currently referring to as the marketplace, where we'll have our different librarians delineated by their roles. So this central region here will be for all of our librarians who have the meaningful enchanted books, especially the mending book. And then left and right will be for people who are looking for either rotten flesh or string and its subsidiaries to try and get yourself some emeralds to buy from the actual librarians. And we will transport those in once we actually have this section built. And here we have my solution to a problem I probably should have seen coming, which was, this thing's very tall. It's a good 60-odd blocks tall, I think it is, something in that region. This alone covers nearly 30 blocks. But this is basically just a lift system. I would have used the one that we have at the Tomb of Takar, but unfortunately that one broke with the recent update, so it doesn't work anymore. So I've regressed to a simpler version. Give it a sec, there we go. And sure, it works perfectly when I'm, like, not on camera, but as soon as I'm on camera, there's a problem. Of course. Why would I ever expect anything different? Alright, hang on. Hey, seriously? Dude, you're gonna do me like this? Fine, I'll fly. Why not? I can do that! Works just fine when I'm not recording, but of course has to show me up at just that last little moment there. But pretty much you stand between the pressure plate and the slime block, and you get catapulted up. So if I... Hopefully, if it will let me... No? Really? You did the first one just fine. Very strange. And here is our sort of pseudo-simulacra of what we have currently at the top of the stairs. Or what is currently our ground floor, so yeah. And there's one either side. I don't expect people will be here in large enough frequency for that to be an issue, but it's convenient nonetheless. You can get your access to all of the gubbins. Obviously, we don't have any here right now. And when you're done, you can bounce down here safely. I almost want to replace it with water, just because water is an instant stop. But, this slows you down. There we go. And also, like, I don't know, but having the slime blocks here seems like a good aesthetic decision to me. So let me know what you think of that. And that's basically it. I added these pipes just to sort of connect the thorax section and the rear section, which I guess makes it some kind of support to keep this big bulk upright, but they don't actually serve any purpose, so I might change that. But I do like that they round out the sort of what was otherwise, and still honestly kind of looks like a gigantic penis. They round out this shape a bit more, so it looks a little less like a gigantic penis. It's kind of hard to make an insectoid body sans legs not look like a penis, honestly. But you know, we try. The human brain is programmed to see peni in basically everything. But yeah, I think it needs more gribbling on the torso. A big question here, of course, is how am I going to spawn-proof the entire area? So there's everything inside of the cradle, and then there's also everything on the upper surfaces of the exterior of the cradle, and that's gonna be fun. But what I want to maintain is that we have the status of this upper section, which if I go to the night, it's very bright on the interior, but it's highlighted, but it's dark for the most part on the exterior. And I really like that function of things, because it gives the sensation that the exterior is imposing and dominating, and then the interior is utilitarian. It's bright because if it wasn't bright, then it would be unusable by, anybody. So we've got this spawn-proofed series of platforms and devices that enables you to actually use the place without getting utterly swarmed and destroyed. So that's something that we do need to consider. We do need to think of the lighting when we're doing gribbling and such. I'm thinking I might end up using a few magma blocks here and there to just sort of give it some nice detail. And especially since magma block glows in the dark, if I could just grab a few of that, maybe I can put some of the terracotta to use when I'm doing this. I don't know. Possibly the grey glazed terracotta. That's an idea. That might fit in. But if we take this, it has its own light level, which means it sticks out in the dark like that. So if I mix that in a few areas, we might be able to give a bit more detail. But for the most part, I'm expecting I will use half slabs and stairs, which, by the way, both are spawn-proof, so I don't worry too much about that. Well, stairs are almost always spawn-proof. Slab is only if it's the bottom of the block, so bear that in mind. But beyond that, I have been thinking in the course of building this thing. I've spent, by the way, over 3 hours building this. It is currently past 4 in the morning. But I've been thinking of the lore of this thing, because it's the Hubris Harvester, and that's really the most that we know about it. And I sort of had the idea that this was some colossal, almost manufacturing kind of device, where it strides across the world, just generating and accumulating various mob drops that are functionally otherwise renewable, or unobtainable even. So you then use a sort of portal network. You come in, you trade with. You could call these guys the staff, I guess, but I'm just going to continue with marketplace. And if you happen to have need of anything in particular, seriously, if I get rid of these, is that gonna work any better? No, I guess this doesn't work anymore. That is very strange. Huh. that should have been one of the most stable things ever. It worked in the 110 when I was building this thing. Does it work now? Curious. I'm gonna have to experiment a little bit to come up with something that isn't a giant ladder. Because ladders are reliable and effective, but dang are they slow and boring. But yeah, so I had the idea that this was some big kind of almost War of the Worlds-esque kind of machine that was built, and it was probably one of several that was actually unleashed upon the world, and it just sort of roams slowly over, plunking its little containers for grabbing the slimes out of the world, and just sits on 8 of them until they are utterly depleted and gone, and then it picks them up individually and moves them over to the next place, because it's got 8 legs, so it only needs 6 to keep itself upright. And then, at some stage, the civilization responsible for these things died out. And nobody told this one. So this is just almost a creature of myth. A legendary, like, almost divine entity that is perpetually strolling across the world, bringing utter terror and fear to wherever it treads, even though it serves a fairly benign, if anything, purpose. Just because nobody knows how to get to the portal system to get in here, so most people just see the sort of very terrain-dominating exterior that's foreboding and just colossal. And it's fun to work with a sense of lore when you're doing huge builds like this, because it informs the smaller decisions that you make when you're trying to think of just how it should look. But with that in mind, I should go sleep, and I evidently need a new lift system, because, might ask Monkey, see if he has any ideas, because that should work. That really should work, and that's irritating that it doesn't. But other than that, hope you've all enjoyed. Technically this was very little on the server today, wasn't it? But it's fine. And I shall catch you all next time.